Patel wins here.
Other than Rd.10. Look at these two go.
He's going to do it. His first victory.
The World Championship is done.
What a race it's been.
The grand finale of a grand season of racing comes here to Interlagos, the perfect venue to host the final showdown in our Titanic Championship tale. It comes down to three. Cosmo Prosciutto, Yuka Pekalalu, and Victor Ivanov all have boasted a fantastic season, but the crown can only be claimed by one. Who will it be? We will soon find out. Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, back to the Formula SimRacing Pro Championship. My name is Zach Sweeney, and alongside me is Richard King with Cameron Rodgers on the production feed to bring you all of the action. And of course, thank you as always to our broadcasting partners over at VCO, as well as Mesita Esports, 3D Wraps, and SimLabs for their continued support of FSR. And now, Richard, it all comes down to this.
This is going to be fantastic. The championship has been so tight all the way through since the big first round. Prosciutto obviously taking the lead in the championship last time out at Indianapolis. I don't know how this is going to play out. I think it's going to be extremely tight all the way to the end. I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, well, we have ticked off 9 rounds so far. We've traveled to some fantastic venues. We started the season all the way back in San Marino, back in February. It's really been a long time, but since then we've had we've had a great season, lots and lots of action all the way through, and yeah, a lot of historic circuits, a lot of fast and flowing circuits. And honestly, I said in a bit in the intro of this is the perfect venue. Interlagos, it's just a track that just goes so well with a championship round off.
It's such a perfect way to end the season. We've had such amazing circuits all the way through. Some amazing circuits. Silverstone, we've been at Monza, we've been at Imola all the way at the very beginning. It's such a fantastic championship, and it all culminates here.
It does indeed. As I say, 3 in the fight. Cosmo Prosciutto, Yuka Pekalalu, and Victor Ivanov. They are in with the shout. 30 points for a victory, and only those 3 are within the realm of doing so. Cosmo Prosciutto does seem to have one hand on the trophy. 11 points clear of Lalu in second place, but it's racing, it's motorsport, anything can happen. But Prosciutto, all he's got to do is get P3. He's going to be coming into this race with more of a conservative mindset.
He is P3, and that will be the championship his. And I think that's going to be really beneficial for him going into the beginning of the race, because he just needs to focus on slowly moving his way through the order, wherever he qualifies, and just focus on Lalu. Now, I'm watching the practice times. Cosmo is looking faster than Lalu, and that immediately is a great first step. And they're out now with qualifying started. So we'll start to see what sort of times they can put in and where they start on the grid.
It all starts with qualifying. Of course, Interlagos is a track that does lend itself well to overtaking. You can get moves done. We saw that in the Academy race just a few moments ago. You can run side by side, but it does always help to get the ball rolling quickly and to go into the race with a boosted mindset. If you can have a good qualifying result, especially if you're ahead of your championship rivals, it just gives you that nice, morale boost going in. You're a bit more confident, and you're going in on the front foot, and you're doing everything right going in, and you're not going in sort of doubting yourself with a lack of confidence, and that can really just mentally help you stay stable throughout the race.
Indeed it will, and there's more fights going on down the field as well. Obviously, we've got that main top 3 fight with Prosciutto, Lalu, and Ivanov, but then down in P4 we've got Danny Vanderneet, then we've got Matthew Williams, and we've got Mirko Mancini. Vanderneet and Williams, both of them not here. So that's going to really help Mirko Mancini's chances, who really has just got to finish this race. And he would be moving up into P4 because he's only 2 points behind that position. So Mirko Mancini looking for a solid end to the Pro Series.
Of course, yeah, we do have our sights on the front 3 for the championship, but it is interesting to take a look a little bit further down amongst the midfield and those in sort of P4 and below, because it is incredibly close amongst that. And looking at Matthew Williams, he's taking he took 4 wins in a row, spanning from round 5 to round 8. And without if he didn't miss the first half this season, if he was here for the last 2 rounds, he really seemed like one of those drivers that could have been in the shout for the championship. But just looking at those that are in the championship hunt, they've been incredibly consistent. Cosmo Prosciutto has only taken 1 win. Victor Ivanov has only taken 1 win. Lalu hasn't even taken a single win. And that just goes to show their incredible consistency over the course of the last 9 rounds.
Indeed, it hasn't shown the consistency now. You've got Ivanov and Lalu right at the top of the qualifying standings in first and second. And then a name that I'm pretty sure those who were watching earlier on for the Academy series, they'll be familiar with, is we've got Kostas Van Vukas in 3rd position at the moment, who has been moving his way through the field in different categories, as is George Zagliananis, another name that's very familiar in the Academy series as well. So it's we've got quite a few different drivers stepping in here. We've got Liam Howard stepping in as well in the field. So even though it's the final race, yes, we're going to be looking at the top 3. There's a lot going on and a lot of names they're going to be wanting to make their mark. End of the season, they're going to want to move up in the categories, into the Pro Series, into the World Championship Series, or to say in the Pro Series, sorry, to move up into the World Championship Series. They're going to really be trying their hardest to show what they can do here. Currently, like I said, Ivanov leading the way in qualifying, not improving on his current lap, but there's quite a few people without lap times at the moment. Cosmo Prosciutto out on 1 right now.
Yeah, he's going to try and get into the mix. Of course, they only get 3 timed laps. They get a 9-lap limit, 3 out laps, 3 hot laps, and then 3 in laps, which they can just escape from. But those 3 hot laps, you have to get the ball rolling quickly, as we see Lally round off his 2nd lap, unable to improve on his previous best, nor get any closer to Victor Ivanov, who is provisionally pole position. But it'll be interesting to see what Cosmo Prosciutto can do on his 1st lap time. It's only good enough for P8, nearly 4 tenths back on the provisional pole sitter of Ivanov. So he's got a bank of time in, but now he's really got to utilize these last 2 laps and make them count.
He really has. He's going to try, hopefully, to get himself onto that provisional pole position, especially with it being a title contender right in front of him. But front row start, that's exactly what he needs for the top 3 at the end of it. Some really close lap times being put in, though, across the entire board. Definitely with Lalu and Van Vukas, only 0.003 of a second separating them. But I'm looking back to Tom Stevens, P4. This is Tom's first race this season in the Pro Series, if I'm not mistaken. That's a new name for me. And you just look at all of the gaps down, there is no gap more than 1/10 of a second behind each driver all the way down to P16. So that's half 1/10 of a second, 1/100th of a second, 300ths of a second. It's so close throughout this field that I cannot wait to see how this race is going to turn out.
It's going to be a crazy, chaotic, exciting, any adjective that you can think of to describe this race. It should be an absolute cracker, I'm sure. And there's no, we look back to last season, some really good finales back then as well. We looked to the Academy Championship where the 2 championship rivals tangled each other down in towards turn 4. So yeah, Brazil, Interlagos, FSR as a whole really does bring some great action, as we have seen for the entirety of this season, as we see the next race driver across the line and to try and boost his way towards the sharp end of the field. But yeah, as you say, it's very, very close in qualifying. That just ramps up the stakes even more because you've got to be on it. You can't miss out on those little things. You've got to maximize every bit of track. You've got to brake on point, get on the power on point, hit every apex, because if you don't and you cost yourself, say, half a tenth, or even a couple of thousandths of a second, that can be the difference, and that can give you an entirely different, possibility of outcomes going into the race.
It can. Everything matters when you come to the final race, and especially, we were talking about tyre strategy as well at the very beginning as to what the plan was going to be for drivers as they get into the race. And I think we're going to see a couple of different strategies being played. It looks like it's going to be a 2-stop, but depending on where drivers qualify, depends on what really strategies we could play out. With Prosciutto obviously down in P8 at the moment, which is not where he wants to be. Could he try an alternate strategy if this is where he ends up on the grid? Whereas Lalu more go with a default strategy that you might expect from the driver starting on the soft tyres, with him in a comfortable position of P2. Of course, this is an inter-team fight between Lalu and Prosciutto. Their team's already won the team's championship. They've absolutely dominated that. But which one of them, if either of them, are going to win the drivers, or is Ivanov's going to snap it out right at the end? This pole position is a way to go with that, but he's still in the pits, so no more laps placed in for Ivanov.
He seems comfortable, just shy of 1.5 tenths clear of Lalu in second place. So he has got a firm grip relative to how close this qualifying has been. Lalu on his final attempt to try and improve white to the first sector. That means he hasn't improved. He's now running his way in towards this tight and tricky infield section to round off sector 2 through this long right hand. And then you round it off. What has he done to the middle sector? White again. So it's not looking good for Lalu in terms of his championship. Zalagianis across the line for his final lap goes up into P4. So a good statement there up onto the second row of the grid. But yeah, Ivanov seemed confident. And Picciuto, we have to say after practice, and you were saying how quick Picciuto looked, to be down in P8 is not good at all. He is now going in on the back foot. He has to make up some places, provided that Ivanov and Lalu stay towards the sharp end of the field.
Indeed, he's going to have to do something different there as well. Fortunately for him, he's got 2 teammates behind. He's got a teammate in front of him. Now, I think we're going to see a little bit of team orders being played there. I don't think we're going to see too much attacking once they start to settle down between the Picciuto and the rest of the drivers in his team. Same with Lalu if he comes across any of the other Royal Blue drivers. I think they are going to be very wary that they are in a championship fight, and they might just let them go in this final race. However, at the same time, I've thought about these team orders throughout the season, and they've never gone the way that I've thought it. There's a reason I'm in this commentary box, and it's because I do everything wrong, apparently, when it's down on the circuit. So we'll see what happens when they go into the race. But right now, Ivanov, 3rd place in the championship, the best place he can possibly be going into the start of this race. Lalu, 2nd position, yet to win a race this season. And I think if any race that he needs to win, it's got to be this one.
Better late than never, of course. And this is how they rack up after qualifying. Viktor Ivanov takes pole position, then ahead of championship rival Jukka-Pekka Lalu in P2. Kostas Van Vukas 3 with his teammate George Zalagianis rounding off his second row in P4. Tom Stevens' impressive debut rounding off the top 5 with Kaz Reitveld in P6. Stoyan Barbakov P7, championship leader. Cosmo Picciuto down in P8 with Mirko Mancini and Patrick Hanko rounding off the top 10 in 9th and 10th respectfully. And well, Richard, this is boarding up to be a really good one.
It really is. We were looking, well, I was looking at the orders during practice, and I really did think that Cosmo was looking like one of the fastest ones there. I thought he was going to get that pole position, and it's completely turned on his head. He's down in 8th, and that's not where you want to be as a championship leader. And this is sort of what we saw with Lalu in Indianapolis. He qualified further down the order, and he struggled to move his way through. Is that going to be the same here for Cosmo? Who knows, but it's going to definitely make this final race a very interesting one.
Yeah, well, if you are wondering how to negotiate the lap here at Interlagos, we have got a lap time from the one and only Michi Hoyer. He's going to talk you through the lap, and we'll step away for just a few moments. We'll let Michi talk you through, and we'll be back in just a few moments.
Hello everyone, and welcome to the final race of the 2022 season in the Formula SimRacing World Championship. Welcome to Brazil, to Sao Paulo, to Interlagos, as we are coming around the final turn, powering up the hill towards our last flying presentation lap. DRS wide open as we're going across the start-finish line. Best overtaken spot here on the top of the hill. Heavy braking for turn 1. Inside tyre tends to lock up as we are going down the hill into 2. The curb can unsettle the rear. Want to have maximum acceleration and speed on the way down to turn 4. Curva del Sol to the bottom of the hill, uphill again after turn 5, into 6 and 7, a double apex right-hander where the front left is crying for mercy, and then easy on the brakes into the first of 3 hairpins. Turn 9, a little bit tight, wide, tight. Don't want to touch the rattle curb on the outside. Through 10 into 11, stay in the middle, open up the entry for downhill turn 12, very bumpy, extremely important to have a good balance there. And turn 13, ever so important as you need maximum power and acceleration up the hill. Through turn 14, easy flat out, again DRS wide open. Through turn 15 and across the line. Guys, that is your final race of the season coming up here at Interlagos, Brazil, and we all can't wait to see who's taking the crown at the end of the year.
Welcome back then, ladies and gentlemen, here to the Formula Sim Racing Pro Championship here for round 10. The season finale. We've just had qualifying if you are only joining us. And of course, thank you to Michi Hoyer for giving us a talk through of the lap here at Sao Paulo. It is myself, Zach Sweeney, alongside Richard Kings. We have got Cameron Rodger on the production feed. And we're about to get ourselves underway for 57 laps here of racing. We talked through qualifying. It's an interesting lineup for the grid order, isn't it, Richard?
It really is something that I was not expecting, and I think that this is going to make it a really interesting race going through the entire period. And I'm not too sure what type of strategies they're going to go for, but Peugeot needs to make his way back up the order of qualifying quite low down compared to his rivals first and second.
He's got a lot of ground to make up, but fortunately for him, he has got a firm buffer in the championship. This is how they rack up after 9 rounds. We saw it just before we got into qualifying. 11 points clear is Cosmo Peugeot to second place man Jukka-Pekka Laulu, and 12 points back, to Victor Ivanov in P3. So, fortunately for him, he's been able to build up that buffer zone, but still, anything can happen. All he has to do to consolidate this championship is get onto the podium, but he's got a lot of ground to cover between P8 and P3. He's going to have to be cautious on that first lap, of course, not to be swallowed up by the pack of cars around him and to avoid contact, because that's another thing that can so easily happen. All it takes is, sending it a bit too deep. He's putting a lot of trust in all the other cars around him not to make that mistake and bring him out of this championship hunt.
Yeah, it needs to really just keep it together and go nice and smooth into the first opening laps, especially going into, the S's at the very beginning. There's a lot of pressure on you for all of these top 3 drivers. That front row is such high intensity with everything on the line here. Now, Cosmo Peugeot, he's got that win this season. It took him all the way until round 9 to get it. But with that behind him, hopefully that can spur him towards the front. And I think that's what he's going to be hoping for as well. Lalu's still in the hunt for that first win. Ivanov, he got it back in round 3. He's just had, unfortunately, missed a couple of races. He's had a DNF at another one. And that's what's pulled his points down a bit. But he's been looking really consistent, just like the other 2. And they've all got to show it here. And I cannot call who's going to come out of this one ahead, because it's so tight, not just in the points, but on the track between the drivers with the times that they were putting in. I can't wait to see what tyres are starting on. Who's going for an old strategy? Are they doing the same thing? How is this race going to pan out? I just don't know, Zach.
It'll be a tale of different mentalities, I think, for Ivanov. He's sort of got nothing to lose in a sense. He's going into this with everything to win. And of course, that shows with him pushing for pole position. He takes it ahead of Jukka-Pekka Laulu, who'll join him on the front row. Then comes the 2 ground effect boys of Cosmos Van Vukas and George Zalagianis, 3 and 4. Rounding off the top 5 comes Tom Stevens on his debut. Then Kaz Reitveld rounds off the 3rd row in P6. Stoyan Barbikov P7. Championship leader Cosmo Peugeot in P8, just in behind. Rounding off the top 10 comes Mirko Mancini and Patrick Hanko, Harry Smith and Gias Lanios running off the 6th row in P12. Looking a little bit to P13. If it wants to cut to it, we have got Cameron Rodger on the cam. So, well, that is certainly explains a lot. Lim Hauer P13, Chancellor Pantelis in P14, Kats Benicio in P15, Thomas Wack just behind in 16th. And behind them, P17, Kevin Moorville, Matthew Tewson will join him on the 9th row of the grid with Peter Vagapov in P19, Fabian Bale just behind him in the virtual drivers by TX3, rounding off the top 20. And I believe that will round us off the entire grid. Fabian Bale right at the back, but the main talking points are our championship leaders, those in the mix. Well, they've got this formation up. They're about to line themselves onto the grid. Predictions.
I cannot predict this one. I do believe that Peugeot will be able to make his way through. I think that he's going to be able to do just enough to pick this championship right on the last moment. But Lalu, if he can get himself into the front past Ivanov and just hope that Peugeot doesn't make it onto the podium, he'll end up with a win on this one. Ivanov, he's got to hope for mistakes from both Lalu and Peugeot to bring back that deficit.
We will soon find out. They are all lined up onto the grid. We're waiting for the 5 red lights to illuminate your screen, and then we'll get underway for 57 laps of this championship decider. Here they come. 3 lights, 4 lights, 5 red lights to the FSR Round 10 Pro Championship. We are go. As Ivanov got away well, he's got Lalu alongside, but it's a poor start. Here comes Van Vukas looking alongside. He's going to make a bit of contact. They wheel rubbers. They head in towards the center S for the first time. Van Vukas will have the inside line. Contact. Who's that sent round? Not entirely sure, but Cosmo Prosciutto, I believe, has been able to make his way through, cleaning up.
Oh
Big crash amongst the midfield. Who's involved in that? It seems like the majority of the field has been, but Ivanov leads from Van Vukas.
Indeed, it looks like Ivanov's come out that cleanly, Lalu's come out that cleanly, and Cosmo Prosciutto. All of them have made it through, fortunately. But you can already see, I think that was just the warm-up of tyres that may have caused some of that issues. The harder ones having issues, the ones on the mediums as well. I believe it was Matt Tucson who was turned, going through the chicane and who clipped the wall. But I also think it was Nizio who went off going into turn number 1, but we'll definitely have to have a little look at that again. But right now, it's Ivanov leading.
It is. He got away well. We're on board. This is with Mirko Mancini as he goes through into turn 2. Prosciutto just in front. That could have ended in disaster. Just drifts out to the exit of turn 2 and just taps. I think it was his teammate. We're on board with the 21 of Chancellor Pantelis going through. There's just so many cars, so easy to get overwhelmed really. One goes off and then it's just that Constantina effect. Everyone here, he tries to avoid, in doing so taps around another car, and it's just that chain reaction of people crashing, then crashing again, and then it just spirals into that everyone trying to avoid. And in that one first lap melee, yeah, it's going to happen, but never usually to this degree.
Indeed, it was Aliojanis who ended up in the wall in that original spin, not Tucson like I originally thought. But that's a real shame. 4 drivers in the pit lane with damage off of the opening lap. That's Agilianis, Chaspalantis, Morville, and Nizio. Now, Morville and Nizio are tied in points in the championship, by the way. They are down in let's see if I can find it, 13 in the championship. So I know a little bit lower than, our championship lead that we're looking for. But just keep an eye on those two because they are equal. Whoever finishes ahead here out of both of those will be 13th in the championship and outbeat their teammate. But back towards the front here, we're looking at Van Vukas, who's got straight involved in this championship battle and is like, I want this win here. Up into P2, and it was a really great start. It was a poor start from Lalu, though, who's now under attack. Straight away, he's going on to lap number 3. He goes defensive.
He is Kaz Reutveld underneath his rear wing trying to find the move, and Lalu has gone the complete wrong direction for him to spark his championship campaign, or to try and round off his championship campaign and come out on top, because he wanted to really put pressure on Ivanov, didn't want to fall into the clutches of Van Vukas, and unfortunately for him, he might actually see himself off the podium. Cosmo Prosciutto just picking his way through, finding the gap, and made his way up a couple of places from P8 now to P6. So as it stands, we'll still win the championship. This is Mirko Mancini with an engine on fire. We're going to take a look at how this one happened, but yeah, well, not off to the cleanest of starts for a lot of these cars.
No, and I think that wasn't just an engine failure sometimes. Yeah, just the engine just waned. I've never seen anything like that before. But Mirko Mancini out of this race after his engine has blown up along the main straight. Prosciutto then, 6th position behind Stevens, looking to get past P5 here and move his way closer in towards Lalu. Now, at this point, I believe, if my maths are correct, Prosciutto would win the championship if this is how we finish. But of course, we're only on lap 4. We've got 57.
Yeah, we still got a long way to go, and Prosciutto is on the back of this train with Storm Barbikov and Patrick Hanko as well, just in tow and trying to stay with them too. And as soon as these guys start to battle, that will bring, of course, more drivers into the mix. But this is the train, I think, actually led by Kostas Van Vukas. Lalu is on the back for P2, and Ivanov just trying to break away from that DRS range, which is 0.7 of a second. So for now, he's hanging on to it. And for Ivanov to win the championship, we will take a miracle, but I think he's more focused on winning the race, doing everything more in his power to do everything he can. If a miracle does happen, he needs to be in the position to win the championship, but he's more interested in just taking another win and to keep the massive train of Van Vukas all the way down behind him and just at an arm's length. It gives him a much easier ride for the rest of this race.
Indeed it does, and what better way to say I deserve a seat up in the World Championship with a second win under his name this season and a win at the final round of the season. Now, I'm going back all the way now through the season. No driver apart from Matthew Williams, has had more than one win this season. Matthew Williams, obviously, the 4 races he competed in, he won all 4. Any other driver that's won, including Viktor Ivanov, has only taken 1 victory. Could he make it a double here in the final round? As you say, the best place to put him in for the championship. It's a far fetch at the moment with Lalu in 3rd and with Prosciutto in 6th. But if something does happen again behind, he's in the best possible position. Vagapov in the pits.
And now exiting the pit lane. All it takes for Ivanov is for Lalu and Prosciutto to have, a strange incident like we saw with Mirko Mancini, or just a crash or anything like that. It doesn't take much, and it can happen at a moment's notice, and, those two will see their championship hopes slip away. That's what Ivanov will sort of, subconsciously be hoping for if he's driving around leading the way. This is on board with Lalu. He's trying to get closer to Kostas Van Vukas to get himself up into 2nd place and put more ground between himself and Cosmo Prosciutto, who's down in P6. He's not actually too far away from Lalu. 3 places, on the timing tower, but about a second and a half or so on track. So not separated by much at all. And just to have that extra buffer zone, just to claim a bit more points, maybe to use some more pace and clear air to get after Ivanov, as we see Stevens to the inside of right, felt down in towards the center S. That was pretty textbook. Up the inside, got it stopped, and jobs are good, and he's into P4.
Indeed, this could help Prosciutto as well. Could put Reichwald slightly on the back foot as they head up towards turn number 4. Reichwald, though, no, he's not on the back foot. He's on the forward foot. He's going to move to the right-hand side of Stevens. Look for a switch back, a little bit of a slide on the rear end. Oh, and a big hit. Oh, that was so close. They were just so lucky to avoid, but the Royal Blue drivers all get through, and Prosciutto is promoted to P4. This is exactly what he needs, but not what was needed to get there. That was so unfortunate. Let's have another replay of this as we watch. Kaz Wilfeld goes to the outside of Tom Stevens. Stevens runs a slightly wide route, balls on his inside, he catches the curb, and he goes around as well. So fortunate. You just saw that was Prosciutto squeeze in between Tom and the inside wall. Let's watch on board Cosmo here. Look how close this was. You see the accident happening in front. He goes to the left, and so close.
That could have ended so badly, so easily. Fortunately, I guess, in this unfortunate situation, it was only the two of Kaz Rietveld and Tom Stevens that were involved in that one. Cosmo Prosciutto is going to be counting his lucky stars and to still be in this race. Threaded the needle through the middle and managed to keep going. Tom Stevens and Kaz trying to bring it back to the pit lane and to no avail for Stevens. He tried to limp his way back home, but that didn't quite work, and that car is certainly more than done. It was an impressive qualifying, impressive start on debut, but didn't quite materialize, and it was the tiniest of snaps, and just sent both of them into the barrier for a massive crash.
Indeed, if it was a 6-lap race, he would have got a very good result. Unfortunately, this is 57, 3 drivers out early on. Nizio is also out, which means Morville is going to take that 13th position in the championship that I was talking about earlier. But right now, Lalu still on the back of Van Vukas, and now this is going to become an even more pressing matter for him, because the driver behind him on track is his championship rival, Prosciutto. He's going to want to try and stay ahead. But the moment he gets past Van Vukas, if Van Vukas can't even hold on to P3, Prosciutto moves himself into P3. Remember, that is a definite championship victory if Prosciutto finishes anywhere on the roster at the end of this.
Yeah, he's for being on form as he is, and P3, it's quite high up, and there's a lot of places that you can finish other than the top 3. But yeah, he's on form, he's quick and looks feisty. He's already carved his way through, taking chance of making use of any opportunity that he can. This is Kaz Rietveld getting past his teammate up into P16 after his crash just a couple of moments ago, and managed to get past. This is what happened to Peter Vagapov. He had a drive-through. That's why we saw him come into pit lane a few moments ago, just rolling backwards before the start. Doesn't gain anything from it, but the game registers that as him moving before the lights go, and that is an unfortunate way to start the end of the season.
It is a drive-through for something that actually lost him more time, but at the end of it, it kept him out of what was quite a big accident, because if he did get off the top in time, he probably would have been involved in getting contact from the massive pile-up that happened near the back of the field. So actually, it probably did benefit him, and a drive-through could be a way to compensate for that, as it were. But Hanko, at the moment, on the rear end of Barbakov, look how many Royal Blue drivers at the front. They're 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th position, chasing down Van Vukas and Ivanov. But we are watching Hanko. chasing down Barbakov for P5 in this race. They're about half a second apart. Nice smooth line from Hanko there as he looks onto the rear wing. As you can just see up ahead, there is quite a gap at the moment between Prosciutto and Lalu, but is that coming down? I believe it slowly is, but I think that's more just because Lalu's caught up behind Van Vukas. If he's able to make his way past, he might be able to increase the gap.
Potentially so, but we don't know that. Lalu didn't get off to the best of starts and fell back behind Van Vukas, which is not how he would have wanted to start this race. But yeah, that is a good thing that Royal Blue have got so many cars towards the front end of the field, because they have the support. Lalu and Prosciutto have the support of Barbakov and Hanko to help them in this championship run versus Ivanov, who is isolated by himself. His next teammates are Harry Smith and Liam Howard in 9th and 10th, so he's not going to have sort of, you know, the strategy buffers, maybe send his teammates out longer to, you know, cover off an undercut or an overcut or anything like that, whereas the Royal Blues have that sort of extra line of defense.
Indeed, and you know, when you look at the Royal Blue, they've got the team's championship. Either way, they could get a driver's championship here. They can get it through Lalu, they can get it through Prosciutto. And really, when you're thinking in a teammate's perspective, you're just going to help them try their best to beat Ivanov out. As you say, Ivanov not got that support. Harry Smith in 9th. The reserve driver, Liam Howard, stepping in for his second week here in a row for the pro reserves, in 10th position, showing actually how confident he is behind the wheel of this car. He had a 4th position finish just earlier on in the Academy Series here in Interlagos, and now he's 10th in the Pro Series. I mean, that's just showing how strong he is and how much he's trying to show that he should be stepping up into the pros next year. But Ivanov right now, all on his own, but a 1.5 second gap. Now remember, it's 7 tenths per second needed for DOS, and Lalu is definitely within that. He looks right on the rear wing of Van Vukas as they come out towards the main straights here, and this is definitely going to be DRS open for Lalu. There it is. Can he make a move? He moves to the left hand side. Van Vukas goes defensive. Lalu moves to the right hand side. He gets the position. Can he hold it into the chicane on the outside? Yes, he can, but can he hold it going up towards turn 4?
We'll have to wait and see. Van Vukas with a good run will have the DRS, or will he just tucked up behind Lalu? It was a very good move to sail around the outside, goes defensive down in towards turn 4. They nearly bang wheels. Van Vukas going to try and go the long way around, gets forced out by Lalu, who then uses the track on the exit and consolidates second place. Now a bit of clear air, 2 second gap between himself and Viktor Ivanov in this race. The fight for the race lead, it wasn't it wasn't a too aggressive defense from Van Vukas. It was an attempt, but Lalu just soared around the outside and then was able to keep composure and stay ahead down in towards turn 4. And those are sort of, he's taken risks in this race, which shows that he's hungry for this championship.
Indeed, if he was just to sit back and take that 3rd position, then he's not going to win the championship. He wants this. Let's have a replay, see what happened, and see how Lalu made his way through.
We'll see. You can see Van Vukas going to the left-hand side to defend. Lalu tried to force the gap open. It didn't quite materialise, was braver on the brakes and ahead with the slingshot. Van Vukas just sort of let it happen, tried to tuck back in, get as close as he can through turn 3 without making contact to the rear end of Lalu. Then was planning on launching the counter-attack down in towards turn 4. You can see getting squeezed out to the extremities of the circuit to the right-hand side. Tried to go the long way around, but Lalu just put his car in the perfect places, claimed the place, and was up in the second as we cut back to the live action. But it was a great bit of racing, great bit of respect between the pair of them. But Van Vukas is staying with Lalu just a little bit here, so he might actually be eyeing up the counter-attack if he can maintain this pace.
Indeed, and if he can maintain this pace, this is on Lalu's side now, because Van Vukas, if he's able to continue to move forward, he can stay ahead of Prosciutto. Now, if Lalu is able to close the gap down to Ivanov, take the lead in this race, Prosciutto remains in P4, that'll be Lalu's championship. Now, obviously, that's not what Ivanov wants, but Lalu's going to be hunting that for sure. With 12 laps gone, I mean, we've still got 45 laps remaining in this race. There's a long way. Strategy is going to play a factor in this race. We've seen it play a factor in a lot of results over the course of the season. If I throw all the way back to Imola, if you can remember that far back, we saw the championship lead change right at the end and gave Cass Rotberg the win because of strategy that was made by the drivers across the field, including the Royal Blue drivers, which threw away a win for their team. So I think that we're going to see different strategies being played by the same team here. And I think Lalu and Prosciutto, they're going to go different ways. Who's going to make it the correct call? We're going to have to wait and see.
We expect it to be a two-stop strategy. The majority of the field, those most notably the likes of Ivanov, Lalu and Prosciutto, all onto the soft compound tyres. So we expect that they're going to go to a set of mediums and then round off the race on a set of softs. A two-stop strategy, so that always adds to the sense of unpredictability and the variety and what the drivers can choose to do, whether they run a little bit longer, take different tyres at different points in the race. But we'll have to wait and see how this one transpires. But for the moment, Ivanov has got a good grasp on this race, consistent, composed, and ready to win. But for Lalu, in his mind, the way he sees it, or the way I would see it, he's 1.8 seconds away from a potential championship, and you get that sense of hunger and that fire to try and close the gap as much as you can, and he's certainly going to be trying to push to close that gap back up.
Early pit stop by someone in the background. Barbakov coming in after just 14 laps on the soft tyres here. So he's going for... Yeah, I know we have seen drivers down the pit lane, but he is going for a 3-stop here because he is coming in super early off of those soft tyres. What will he put on? It looks like a medium set of tyres on his car here, so we'll go a little bit longer. But the strategy, yeah, it's going to be interesting. The whole race is going to be, I think, difficult to call. Even at this point, yes, we got Prosciutto in P4, but he has to move his way into P3 to get this confirmed championship. Now, Lalu, he's closed down. Since he moved into P2, he's closed about 5 tenths per second. That's a significant amount of time within just a few laps. If he keeps this pace, not pushing too hard, taking it a little bit longer, he can catch Ivanov. And then he's just got to take it nice and easy, not push too hard, and just hope that Prosciutto can't make his way onto the podium. Because like Ivanov, the best you can do is aim for first. And if your championship rivals beat you to it, then unfortunately you're not going to be able to win the championship.
At least you've done everything in your power to try and get there. Of course, you've got the whole season in your power, but for the likes of Ivanov, he's missed 2 races this season. So the fact he's even in with a shout of the championship is quite remarkable. But yeah, he's coming into this final round, still punching and trying his best. This is Lianos for ground effect coming into the pit lane on lap 15. So this probably will be the 2-stop, maybe a 3-stop that we've been talking about, onto another set of soft compound tyres. But yeah, Cosmo Prosciutto, for him in P4, he's relying on other people. He's relying on Lalu not getting into the race lead. At the moment, it's not comfortable, and he's not got that sense of security that he could potentially have if he did move himself up into P3. But he's got a tough ask to get up there, 2 seconds between himself and Kostas Vanvukas. So not only that, he's also got to get through and up onto the podium. So it's still all up in the air. Yes, it's an 11-point gap. Yes, it's very close, and it seems likely that Prosciutto could win this championship. But certainly don't go anywhere with how this race so far has already gone. We've already lost a few drivers in this race. We've already seen engine blow-ups. We've already seen bits of contact and pile-up. So anything can happen at a moment's notice. This is Lalu, though, the first, and Prosciutto also follows him in as well. So these two pushing the button and going for an early stop.
Indeed they are, and at the same time, now it's going to be about how quick they can get through. Very close together in the pit stall. Unfortunately, not sharing a pit box, but away pulls Lalu, away pulls Cosmo Prosciutto here. So gap remains about the same. They didn't seem to miss their marks at all, and they pulled in at quite a good amount of speed into their box. So out they come then. Lalu P6. Is he going to fall to 7th as Barbakov moves his way past Prosciutto? In fact, Tucson moves up into P8 past Prosciutto as well. Now this is going to be to the detriment of Cosmo Prosciutto, who's going to have to try and make his way past a driver on old medium tyres out of the pit lane. You can just see them in the background there. Tucson just ahead of Cosmo Prosciutto at the moment.
Losing more time stuck behind traffic, and it shows, I think, that the undercut is quite powerful in this race. This is Cosmo Prosciutto on the back of Tucson heading through the middle sector. He can't find any way through really at this point, so he just has to sit back and fall back to the pace of Tucson, which is going to be to the absolute despair of him, as he just wants to get on with it and try and push forward. Ivanov, Vanvukas and Hanko all into the pit lane here on lap 17. What has Lalu been able to do on this outside short lap relative to Ivanov. Has he been able to close the gap? Has he lost anything? Will it stay the same? This is Prosciutto. It will be a crucial move for him to make, looking already to the left-hand side, and it should be a fairly easy affair and a good move done quickly for Prosciutto.
Indeed it is. Lalu coming around here, but it looks like he has made it. Lalu has jumped him into what is the net race lead here. Ivanov filters down into the field. Smith currently leading with Howard in second, both yet to pit, but Lalu is in your net race lead here. This is exactly what he needs.
It is exactly what he needs. The one-lap swing in the undercut has given him the advantage to get him into the provisional race lead, the provisional championship winning position as it stands as well, because Prosciutto's time loss means that he's even further back from that consolidative P3 that he needs to securely take the championship. Now it's all on Lalu. He has to deal with this pressure. He has to keep composed, and he has to make sure that Ivanov's strategy doesn't come back to its own towards the end of this race. This has really spiced things up. They are still separated by not much on track either, so Ivanov is still going to be fighting to get that lead back.
Indeed he is. Now, obviously Barbakov, yeah, he did his pit stop a couple of laps earlier than the rest of them, so he has jumped these drivers. Prosciutto looking like he has got past, well, he did get past, it looked like Tucson anyway before pit stops. That was a bit of a mental moment, but anyway, we're looking at Tucson now, who is in P9 behind Lianos, but this is Lalu side by side with Smith, and there's contact. There is contact between Lalu, who is battling for a championship, and Smith, who isn't involved in this championship at all. It's so close, and it looks like Lalu has made his way through, but look at this, Ivanov right on the background, and that was entirely Smith's intention, working for his teammate Ivanov.
Ministry of Defense from Harry Smith to back up Lalu into his championship rival of Viktor Ivanov. It was a good play. It was clean and done well. Aggressive but fair. Lalu now is going to start to feel the pressure. Ivanov well and truly in the slipstream and DRS range as they head through the final corner now and down this pitch straight towards T1. Can Ivanov have an answer for Lalu on this lap? Harry Smith did a great job of bringing him back into the fight. Slipstream, DRS, push to pass potentially as well if he can get close enough. He's closing and closing at a rate of knots. Not quite good enough, but all he has to do now, hit his apexes, hit his marks through T1, 2 and 3, and he might have a good shout down in towards T4. He's a lot closer, and he's get us another shot of DRS as well, another helping. Lalu's going to be looking in his mirrors. Is Ivanov close enough? Not quite. So Harry Smith's effort might be all in vain.
Indeed it is. Lalu leading the way ever so slightly over Ivanov. Prosciutto down to P5 because it was his teammate who jumped in. Barbakov up to P3 at the moment. Van Vukas in P4. Prosciutto's got quite a bit of a gap as well, about 1.5 seconds just to Van Vukas, and then a further second up to Barbakov. So this could be a real challenge here for Prosciutto to get into his much needed podium position spot. But if Lalu falls to second, I think this championship still swings Prosciutto's way. Trying to do maths at the very top of my head. I'm not good at maths anyway, so that doesn't work very well. But Lalu on board him, looking back at Ivanov. There is a 0.4 of a second gap. That is going to be DRS for Ivanov. Can he do anything along the main straight? And of course, after the S's as well, Ivanov will have a double helping.
He will indeed. He's closing and closing, but once more, not close enough. As it stands, if Lalu falls into second place with Cosmo Prosciutto in P5, it's a 2-point swing in favour of Prosciutto. So Lalu really doesn't want to relinquish this race lead if he wants to win this championship. But of course he does. He's got a chance and he's going to be fighting his teammate for it. There's no team's championship at stake. They've wrapped it up before this round, so they can go at it. They can go ham and fight as true rivals. Ivanov still unable to make any way through. Is this a strategy just to pile on the pressure behind? He knows the undercut now is quite strong and could use that in his favour for future pit stops.
He could. We were talking earlier, 25 laps or so on these medium tyres, which will take them, again, mass, it's just not my strong suit, to about lap 40. Maybe just over lap 40 for these drivers. Who's going to jump in a bit earlier? Do we see some drivers go for that 2-stop on a double medium set of tyres? Because yes, you'll be on the slower compounder tyres, but the undercut looking quite strong that it could actually help you jumping a few laps early, go mediums all the way to the end. But right now, Lalu is looking relatively comfortable, but every time we get onto a DRS strike, Ivanov just closes, but not using push to pass. So I don't think he's trying too hard to take the lead, but as you say, possibly pushing Lalu's tyres a bit harder than what Lalu would want to do at this stage in the race.
Absolutely. And of course, going to another set of mediums, you can push them more comfortably for longer. Those medium tyres will take more of a hit as you try and push at a higher pace. You might have to nurse the softs a little bit, and that might not be to everyone's taste. But who knows? Ivanov at least is still sat behind Lalu, and it could actually be a game of psychological warfare and, of course, a race won in the pit lane between these two. Lalu, I mean, for Ivanov at the moment, it seems as the laps tick on, it's incredibly unlikely that he's going to take this championship. He just wants to take the race win as his Netrex teammate has a bit of an off the exit off that right-hander. But yeah, for Ivanov, I think he at the moment is just racing for the race lead and with the off chance of winning the championship. For Lalu, he physically cannot relinquish this race lead, and that's going to be more pressure on the shoulders of the Royal Blue car.
Especially Lalu is yet to take a win this season. So not only is it the pressure of going for the championship, Ivanov goes to the inside, and you can just see Lalu taking that a bit easier. He's not going to go for the fight through the S's, but he is going to get the second bite of the cherry going down into turn 4. Could he go for something here? But this is even more pressure for him. Yet to win a race this season, and now he is fighting for the championship in the last race as well. Van Vukas goes around the outside of Barbakov there, just about makes it through.
Just about, as they fight still on the climb towards what will be, turn 6, as they head through this long right-hander in towards 7. Van Vukas trying to get back through, but Lalu really didn't put up much of a fight versus Ivanov. Maybe, sitting back and going for a repeat of what he did in the first pit stop to undercut Ivanov and then fight slightly harder on the second time around. These are the live standings. As it stands, Prosciutto will take the championship by 2 points ahead of Jukka-Pekka Lalu and 7 points back to Viktor Ivanov. Then Stoyan Barbakov P4, Danny Van der Neat falls back to P5 after not partaking in today's race. But it comes down, as it stands, to 2 points. There's nothing in it. And all it takes is one position for Lalu. All it takes is, a couple of places for Prosciutto to consolidate that championship. It's going to be close.
Indeed, and we've got to think that Prosciutto could also fall back. Lalu could finish second in this race if Prosciutto falls back just one position, as around goes Van Vukas, and that is what Prosciutto needs, up to 4th position. I was talking about him falling back. He's climbing up, and he moves into P4, and the driver in front of him is Barbakov, a teammate who could let him through. Let's have a little watch what happened there.
We'll see if we can get the live standings out of the way. You can see tucked up very much on the rear wing of Stoyan Barbakov. Goes through the car, is just not having it. Bit over the curb, car's unsettled, and he takes a trip up the banking and through the grass, and that is not what he wants at all. Prosciutto will be licking his lips at that one because he is now 1 position closer and only about less than a second now off that crucial sweet zone of P3 that he needs to win this championship. So he can see it, he's going to be hungry for it, and really he needs to go for it because Lalu does have a good shot with this race win.
He does, and it's that sense of how hard does Barbakov fight this. Now, of course, we saw that the 2 Royal Blue drivers, Prosciutto, Lalu, they did the same strategy. It's almost as if the team is saying, we are making this equal terms. You will try to win this by yourself. You won't try to win it on alternate strategies. You're going to have to drive for it. Prosciutto, P4, he's got Barbakov ahead. Now, Barbakov could go defensive and, try as hard as he can to defend here. But at the same time, how hard does he go to try and avoid a collision with Prosciutto, or could there possibly some sort of issue here? So Barbakov, it's going to be that sense of, yes, it's his teammate in front of him. Yes, it's his teammate behind him. But how hard does he defend against Cosmo Prosciutto? Because we've seen these drivers get quite close to a race-ending instance, season-ending incidents throughout the course of this race, and Prosciutto's closing right up.
It's that awkward position, isn't it? It's like, which teammate do you like more? Do you like Lalu more? Do you like Prosciutto more? Who do you want to help to win this championship? But yeah, I would not want to be in Barbakov's position right now because, I mean, he could just drive his own race. If Prosciutto goes for a move, then so be it. He goes for a move. If he's not quick enough, then fair enough. Lalu will, be under a little bit less pressure. So I guess that's all he really can do. He doesn't want to put up too much of a fight. Or does he drive for himself? Does he not really care about his teammates? I mean, hopefully that's not the case, but a very awkward predicament for Barbakov to be in at the moment. Only time will tell what he is able to do. Does Prosciutto go for the move? Because he is very close with DRS at the moment, has to stay behind. Lalu dropping back on Ivanov. It was only a 1-lap swing in their tyres. Lalu came in, I think it was on lap 16 or 17, Ivanov a lap later. surely Ivanov's tyres aren't in that much more of a better condition. Maybe the pressure Ivanov put on Lalu for all those laps meant Lalu, now well in second place, can't keep up.
It could be that Lalu's trying to save his tyres few laps to compensate, as you say, the pressure he was put under. Might have been pushing a bit too hard, so now he's compensating for it, backing off for a couple of laps to try and get his tyres back to the strategy that he needs to be on. Tucson coming out of the pits here, P13 currently in this race, which is quite good because he was right at the back of the field off of lap 1, so he's recovering at the moment. He's coming out of the track in P14. Morville, Chas Palantis, both a lap off the leader right now. But here we go, Prosciutto half a second behind. This should be close enough to go through an overtake if he wants it.
Yeah, it should be if he just uses his help and a push to pass as well. He seems very close with DRS. Should be a fairly easy affair. No defense set up from Barbakov. Prosciutto up into P3. That's all he needs to do to win this championship. So for Lalu and Ivanov, that is a massive hit in what they could have seen as the last hope to take this Pro Championship. But we're not even halfway through this race yet. Still a long way to go. Still a lot of things to happen. Still a lot of questions to be answered. But as it stands, Ivanov leads from Lalu, Prosciutto, Barbakov, and Hanko, your top 5. But for Ivanov, yeah, as we were saying a little bit earlier on, how the Royal Blues have got so many cars so far up front. Ivanov, he's still so isolated all by himself out in front.
He's so isolated, but he's done a fantastic job because when he wasn't isolated, obviously we had that switch over, that transition period between the different pit strategies, and it was Smith going just a little bit longer on the soft tyres. Now, he didn't need to go longer. He could have pitted about the same time as Howard pitted, because you can see 9th now to Howard. He did gain from pitting earlier, but by staying out, Smith really benefited Ivanov because he fought so hard with Lalu on that in-lap that it just caused Lalu to back up, and that allowed Ivanov to catch up. So yes, he is alone, but he's got 2 drivers on a different strategy who could very possibly come into play yet again in the second stop later on. But right now, you just look at that standings and you just look the Royal Blue. There's such a big fight coming from behind Ivanov that this is now a far off chance for Ivanov to win the championship. Win a race, I think it's going to be his race come the end of this. But win the championship, unless something drastic happens behind, I think this is going to be a far-fetched one.
It will be even more far-fetched is a take from Edward Hunter in the YouTube chat that says if they're not careful, Prosciutto will catch Lalu, they'll crash into each other, and Ivanov will win the title with a massive steal. As we see Vagabov get past Fabian Barley down in towards turn 4. That is a very far-fetched take, but we've seen stranger things happen, I suppose, and it would be a very Interlagos thing to happen. This is Costas Van Vuka, on the back of Thomas Wack for P7, trying to redeem himself after a spin going through T2 and in towards T3. He's done a good job at getting back into the swing of things, and now he's pushing forward and trying to recover from what was a really good place that he was in.
Indeed, it was a shame that he lost the rear end. So easy to do. It's the first time I was watching most of the Academy race earlier. I think it was the first time that I saw a proper spin around that corner going that direction. I think I saw one other, which caused a fire in the Academy series. It was quite common, actually, coming out of the last corner, as it were. The last main corner. I don't know numbers. But you know which one I mean. And they just got onto the grass, started to doing a little bit of a Kimi Räikkönen around on the grass. And that's where I thought we would see more issues during this race. But that's not the case. It's not been the end of the lap that's causing these drivers issues. It's the start of the lap. And is that they're just not quite sure of their speed coming through off the main straight into the hard braking zone? Their tyres have cooled down a bit because this middle sector, the track was 50 degrees when the race started. The middle sector, they're warming the tyres up so much. Does it cool down just enough along this nice, smooth run that they're just cooler coming out of that first chicane? It's just making their car a bit more unsettled. Very possibly Van Vukas, though, on the rear of Wack. He's closing up. This could be an opportunity. He moves to the right-hand side.
He does. Is he going to go the long way round, though? He broke a lot later, had a look to go the long way round, but he's going to try and take a second helping of DRS and probably get through the easy way up into P6. Wack not going to put up much of a defense, or is he all the way to the left-hand side? Going to force Van Vukas to go to the right. Who's going to be braver on the brakes, though? Is it going to be Van Vukas? Yes, it is. Sails around the outside, given a wide berth. Bit of a twitch on the exit, manages to save it. And the ground effect car up into 6th place. A bit of a way off the top 5, but at least he's managed to recover to the best of his ability. But yeah, Wack certainly did want to defend that place. And yeah, unfortunately for him, he's going to be, I'm going to say, unable to launch the counter-attack with the pace underneath Van Vukas.
How much pace would Van Vukas show? Do you think that possibly he could make his way back onto the podium and once again insert himself into the middle of this title fight and help Lalu out in the championship, as it were? Or do you think that now that he's had the spin, even though he's showing pace right now, it's just not a possibility for him to recover in what is less than half the race remaining?
It's going to be tricky and probably very unlikely for Van Vukas to get himself into that podium contention that he potentially was in a little bit earlier on. This is his teammate Lianos on the back of the Nerex driver of Harry Smith. Should be an even easier fare than it was for Van Vukas because of the soft compound tyres versus the mediums. He's going to do it down in towards turn 1. The first helping of DRS, bit of push to pass as well for good measure. Gets himself up and not too hard fought for Smith because, well, it's not really his fight. He doesn't want to fight Lianos. He's more interested in his teammates' championship rivals. So he's saving his defensive abilities for them.
He is. He's just taking it easy at this point, just trying to keep his cool, as it were. No need to push so hard. Definitely when a lot of our drivers are starting to get into their own sort of areas in this race, they're looking at the gaps. There's at least a second between most of the drivers on around the track, and that means that they're in a different headspace now. They're no longer in the headspace of I need to go for an overtake or I need to defend from the car behind me. It's more stick to my marks, and I've always found that easier when there's a car a couple of seconds up the road. You have a target to catch, and that's really helpful for a driver like Prosciutto. He's got the target of Lalu. Lalu's got the target of Ivanov. But then you look at Van Vukas, who's trying to recover from this one. He's got a 7-second gap up to Hanko. There's no target in front of him that he can visibly see. And that can almost deter you. You almost don't push as hard to catch up. But right now, I think everyone's in the middle of their stints on these medium tyres. Some drivers obviously on the softs. We're going to start seeing pit stops, I would say, within the next 15 laps for those going on to the softs. I'd say we'd see 10 laps for those who want to go for mediums at the end, and could be a good undercut strategy. But within, 26 laps left to go in this race, we're getting towards the end of this championship, and Prosciutto, he's the one in the driving seats right now, even though he's in 3rd position.
Both literally and figuratively for Cosmo Prosciutto. He's going to be, yeah, he certainly does have got one. He certainly has got one hand on the trophy for this championship. And to be fair to him, he's been so consistent. Unfortunately for him, he lost out the Academy Championship to Damien Skovron last time in 2021 and actually made contact down in towards turn 4. So fortunately for him, it's been a slightly easier, cleaner affair this time around. But yeah, it'll be nice for him to redeem himself in the higher category, of course, as well. This is Lianos on the back of Liam Howard. No more on the back as he gets his nose ahead and up into P8. And yeah, Liam Howard doesn't fight that one too hard. But yeah, you look at Prosciutto's results. He's bar 2 races where he DNF'd and finished P17 in Malaysia. He hasn't finished outside of the top 5, which is just some incredible consistency. Only 1 victory under his belt as well. Yeah, he is certainly going to be a deserved winner if that is the case. But so too for Lalu and Ivanov as well. They've been so consistent, such good drivers and such good rivals throughout the season too. Unfortunately, the championship can only be won by one, and with each lap that goes by with Prosciutto in 3rd, it looks increasingly unlikely that's going to be the case.
Indeed, as you say, the championship can only be won by one, and Prosciutto almost a redemption he's looking for this season. He's not been in the lead of the championship at any point this season until we headed into the final round, and he has put his car in the best position that he can be in currently with such strong drivers in front of him. His consistency and the win last time out, of course, at Indianapolis has pushed him to excel this season. But the title contention has been so close, and it's not over. Anything can happen. We've seen cars go around just losing the rear end. We've seen a couple of contact collisions happen throughout this race, and we've seen an engine blow up for the first ever time in my experience in rFactor 2, just randomly along a straight. Anything can happen, especially with over 20 laps to go. But right now, these drivers are doing all they can do, and Ivanov, he is doing the best job of them all, leading by over 3 seconds. It's just not enough for what his rivals are doing behind.
Look at Lalu and Prosciutto, though. Prosciutto has closed the gap to around about a second. Lalu has really fallen off over this middle part of his medium stint. Looks strong for the first sort of 5-10 laps of it, but since then has really fallen off, and Ivanov has been able to grow a lead, and Prosciutto has been able to cut down the gap to both his teammate and his rival. And could we see what Edward Hunter predicted in the YouTube chat? That would be something, and probably is going to be the only way Ivanov can win this championship. Yeah, we talk about unpredictability. That's why we love racing, and why we why we love it and we hate it, I suppose. If it just depends if you're on the receiving end of it or not. But yeah, still a long way to go. Still a lot of things still to happen. And for Lalu, if you're in his position and you see Prosciutto closing up onto you so quickly, what do you do? How do you approach this situation? Do you let him go? Do you fight him hard? What is going through the mind of Lalu at this point?
How do I take him out without taking myself out? Could be a possible... No, I think these drivers are really clean, and I think you're right. He's just going to think, what am I going to do in this position? Am I going to let him through and focus on my own tyre wear? Try to go on my own stint and get the advantage possibly later on with an undercut, possibly try something different. But then again, he could fight hard. That will drop them off of Ivanov, of course, but it could push him into the battle with Hanko, Barbakov. Oh, Barbakov coming into pit lane. Of course, he was the first driver into the mediums tyres. What's he going to go on from this point? It has to be mediums, surely. If he's going for a two-stop, he goes up in the air, he drops down, and it is another medium set of tyres for Barbakov, which should be to the end. This could be another good undercut strategy from him. Get himself in front of both his teammates, possibly get himself in second.
Can he hang on to it once he does do that, though? That is, again, the risk and the compromise that you take with these strategies. You get the track position, but can you hang on to it? And with 2 helpings of DRS, 2 consecutive helpings of DRS, and if they've got any push to pass left in the tank, they will certainly sail past and get themselves ahead. So again, you have to play that compromise in your head. Do you go for a faster car with compromised track position? Do you go for a slower car with better track position? And you just have to play it up, balance it in your head, track by track as well. But yeah, for Barbakov, it's a risk that he's willing to take. Drops down to P8 after his pit stop, and has really actually got a nice bit of clean air, so he can use those fresh set of mediums to try and push a little bit and maximize the undercut that he's trying to get.
Indeed, and then in front of him is Lianos, who's on quite old soft tyres, so once he does catch up, he should be able to jump that quite easily. Van Vukas also now into the pit lane. That will surely be for another set of mediums to the end. So where we were discussing the strategies earlier, we were thinking soft, medium, softs was going to be quite a common one. It doesn't seem like that might be the case. It looks like a soft, medium, medium might be the preferred for those outside of the top 3. I don't know what these leaders are going to decide. Ivanov, 4 seconds spare between himself and those in front of him. He could have quite a big choice here to make, and he has quite a lot of room to move through that position.
He does indeed. We just see in the bottom right of our screen, or at least I do on the Discord stream of the live standings, maybe Cam's getting ready to pull them up, but it is still a 2-point swing. Well, it might not be actually a 2-point swing for Cosmo Prosciutto versus Lalu, because he is now right underneath him in this race. That was back when Lalu was in P2 and Prosciutto was back down in P3, but since then Prosciutto has been able to work his way back up onto the podium. Of course, if you are only joining us, you joined us late. That's all Prosciutto needs to win this championship. 11-point buffer he came into this race with in the championship, and all he needs is a podium to round it off. And what a way to round it off if he could get that podium. There they are, the live standings. A 7-point lead for Prosciutto versus his teammate Lalu. Ivanov a further 7 points back on 163. Vandeney and Barbakov with 121 and Williams at 120. So it's been very, very close in the championship. Of course, Williams not here, Mancini out of this race. So it is between those two. Actually, no, it's not. It's if Barbakov can get an extra place because Vandeney isn't here either. So it's all in his hands to try and get himself up an extra place in the championship standings. But Prosciutto still closing the gap right underneath his teammate now. They approach in about 10-ish laps, maybe 7-ish laps. Their final round of pit stops. Does Prosciutto just wait till then, sit in the slipstream for a little bit, or is he going to try and get the move done?
Depends. He could pit in early here and decide to go on to the medium compounder tyres. But that's exactly what Lalu's going to do. He is going to come in early. He knew that he was under attack then from Prosciutto, and this is almost his only opportunity here to try something different, to keep himself ahead of Cosmo Prosciutto. He's going to come into the pits with 20 laps to go. This is surely going to have to be another set of mediums to the end. No, that's softs. He's put soft tyres on. He's going to go 20 laps on softs. That is a big ask, and very brave indeed, as I say.
Yeah, that is... Cameron Rodger in our ear was just like, he's doubting that one just a little bit. This is side between Smith and Van Vukas, back up into the top 10 for the ground effect car as he looks to redeem himself after a spin earlier on. But that's going to be a tough ask for Lalu. It's a risk that he's potentially willing to take for this championship. He can't push too hard on those tires. He has to save them just a little bit, but I can't see it working out for him. It's probably one of those last-ditch efforts. He saw that Prosciutto was up in a P3. He saw that Ivanov was getting away from it. It's probably just one of those things that if it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. It's probably one of those sort of hero or zero. Not going to really work, but if it does work, then great. As we see Ivanov also into the pit lane, surely this isn't for softs.
No, with the lead that he's got, this would be a mediums, I would say. But Prosciutto coming in. Do you know what? Actually, it could be softs. They could be all going for the softs here, which is going to benefit Lalu, because yes, he's going to have one extra lap on those softs, but he's going to get the undercut. What's going on? It is soft tyres for your race leader, Ivanov. Prosciutto, it is also soft tyres. 19 laps for these guys that are going to go. Here comes Lalu around the outside. He's going to get past Prosciutto. Is he also going to get past Ivanov?
No chance.
It's very, very close, but it looks like it's going to be Ivanov's position who is going to fall in behind Lianos. Now, this is going to help Lalu indeed, as Barbakov is also behind Ivanov. Could try to get involved with a fight between Lianos and Ivanov here and slow them down a little bit like Smith did earlier. Can Barbakov almost help out his teammates, but Ivanov goes for the move around the outside of Lianos, and that is how much grip he's got. He keeps it in, and he's going to get the inside, move straight past Lianos. An amazing amount of grip.
He needed to do that because he knew the consequences if he didn't. He had the chasing car, Barbakov and Lalu in hot pursuit. So he needed to get that move done quick. You don't often see moves done there, but he had confidence in his car and himself and the grip that he had. Hanko into the pit lane as well. So Ivanov will get himself back into his genuine race lead, not just the provisional net one, and up into P1 once more for Ivanov. But it was a great move, just confidence, knew he had the grip to keep the footing around the outside, and important for him. Now Lalu has a tough ask in order to close the gap and to still win this race. And with that one extra lap, we saw how it dropped off, even that one lap on Lalu's set of mediums versus Prosciutto and Ivanov. Could it be a similar case, potentially even a more exaggerated one on the softs?
Very possibly, but I must say that I think it was the best call for Lalu. When you look at the gap between them now, 2.5 seconds between Lalu and Prosciutto, that was about to swap positions between both of them. So I think that was a very good call there. Van Vukas on his recovery drive makes his way past Howard there, very on the limits, kicking up a little bit of grass there, but he's into P7 behind Hanko now, looking to get into 6th position. He is only 12 seconds off your race leader. He's only about 8 seconds off of Prosciutto here, so actually he has closed down quite a bit of that gap. But again, he was one of the drivers that pitted just a little bit earlier, and those soft tyres are going to feel very sluggish come the last few laps of this race.
Yeah, it was a risk that he was willing to, had to, whatever you want to call it, he took it, and is ahead of Cosmo Prosciutto by around the length of about 1.5 seconds versus his teammate and rival just in behind, but still enough for Prosciutto to take the championship come the checkered flag. And yeah, still, what have we got? 15, 16 laps left to go in this race. There's still the chance of something to happen. Barbakov might have pulled something with this early medium stop. He's losing time to Ivanov, though. In fact, gaining the pendulum swinging in the gap, the interval between the two. But yeah, I don't think it's enough for Barbakov to close the gap enough. And with Lalu and Prosciutto also closing in, those are the live standings. And yeah, it's just Prosciutto even more so. Yes, Lalu is going to gain a couple of points, but it's not 11-point swing in the favour of Lalu. So enough, but not quite enough for well, it's something, but not quite enough for Lalu in this race.
Indeed, he tried something different. He jumped in early, and I think that's the best thing that he could have tried, is just something different. Whatever he did, obviously, he had to try and compensate for the loss of time that he was having out on the track on those medium compound tyres. Getting onto the softs has helped him in the short run, but it's not going to move him closer to Ivanov, and he needs that. He needs to catch Barbakov. He needs to catch Ivanov, and that just is not happening right now, which is unfortunate indeed. But this is all playing into Prosciutto's hands, who took his first win in Indianapolis of the season, and he is looking like it's might not even be a podium result here, but he is closing into Lalu, so he could sneak his way onto the podium and have a nice end to the season. But it's not over until it's over. 15 laps still left. Ivanov leads the way. If anything happens to Lalu, anything happens to Prosciutto, it could all play into Ivanov's hand, who is doing all he can. He's put himself in the best position throughout this entire race. But right now, it's Barbakov P2 with his teammates Lalu and Prosciutto catching up. The track conditions, it is getting cooler. It was over 50 degrees Celsius on track earlier on at the start of the race. It's cooled down to 47 degrees at the moment, which is going to change the way these tyres feel from the first stint, especially with the lighter fuel load as well. And this is where I think we could start seeing some issues with the rear end being lost. But right now, the drivers, they're the reason they're top 3 in the championship, and they are inside the top 4 on the race. They are just so consistent, and they know how to drive this car.
They do indeed. They know how to do it, and they know how to do it well. It's one thing anyone can drive the car, but you've got to be good to drive it well. And for these guys, they do that week in, week out, round in, round out. Over the course of the last few months. We started back in February in San Marino. We've traveled to likes of Malaysia, Japan, the UK, France, Belgium, Italy, the USA, and now here to round off the season in Brazil. It's been a fantastic season. It comes down to the last 15 laps. Prosciutto on the back of his championship rival of Jukka-Pekka Lalu. And it's probably going to take an air of caution, because he doesn't need to get this move done. Right now, everything is good enough. There's no need to take that unnecessary risk.
Indeed, Prosciutto's almost been involved in countless number of incidents near the start of this race, and as you say, he doesn't need to make this move past Lalu. He doesn't need to get any closer to Ivanov. He can finish this race in P4, but as a driver, yes, he's on his way to win the championship, but how much do you still want to get on the podium in your final race of the season to take that championship home? He's going to want to try it, but how hard does he push? Of course, Barbakov's medium tyres, they're going to slow himself down over the soft tyres, but he could show some pace at the end. Is Lalu Prosciutto going to catch up possibly to Barbakov? How hard are they all going to fight each other? Is Barbakov just going to say, you know what, you go for it, and back out of what is a championship fight, try to risk any sort of incident? But we saw it in the World Championship when championship contenders collide. Let's hope we don't see it here. Well, Ivanov's case, he's going to hope we do.
Yeah, that is, he's going to be, manifesting that. He's going to be sat with candles around his room trying to hope that these two crash. But Barbakov again in that awkward situation of, having both your two teammates, but also the two championship rivals right behind you, and you don't want to be that guy. Prosciutto, with the help of DRS, has he been able to get the move done on Lalu? It's a very easy affair, not fought hard at all by Lalu, who just tucks in behind. Prosciutto onto the podium, and I think Lalu's just accepted his fate that he tried, but Prosciutto with the buffer, it was always going to be a tough ask, and he's up into P3 and maybe just trying to bring it home in 4th.
Yeah, that definitely did look like an accepting the fate moment. He even ran wide along that kink along the main straight. He didn't try to get the tight line. He didn't try to defend it. He just let Prosciutto go through. And That's almost a heartbreaking moment, especially if you've been supporting Lalu throughout this season, with the season that he's had, the ups and downs, the strong results that he's had with 3 podiums so far this season, but the issues, and it all comes down to, in terms of that fight for the championship, as Liam Howder makes his way past Bale there for 10th position. It could be a little bit of swap over as he goes slightly wide, but no, he holds on. Howard up to P10. I think that Prosciutto got unlucky. Spa, of course, a retirement in Belgium, but Lalu's retirement, let's just throw ourselves back to his year here. He retired because of a disconnect. How unlucky do you have to be if you lose out the championship because of a disconnect? But that is the pain of sim racing. In real world, you get engine failures. Apparently, you get engine blow-ups in rFactor 2. You can have mechanical failures in the real world. You can have technical failures in the sim racing world. And that's what's caused this championship to come right down to the wire and just swing in Prosciutto's favour, who is all over his teammate, and he's not leaving this to chance. He wants the best position he can possibly get.
Absolutely is the case, and hindsight, it's not very nice. You look back and you think, I could have got points here. If my Wi-Fi was connected, if my router didn't, mess up, I could still be within a shout. And it's these, when a championship comes down to so little, you look back and you think, what more could I have done? And you don't think about it in the time. You think, I'm going to try and limit the damage. You maybe don't push for that extra place, but maybe you should, because it's moments like these that you start to regret that. As Prosciutto, just absolutely slingshots his way past Barbakov up into 2nd place. Even more points between himself and Lalu, growing the gap. And it seems as time goes on, Prosciutto, his chances of winning this championship grow ever more until we get to the checkered flag. But with how it's been, with how close and decisive this season has been, you cannot have been affording anything. And maybe it comes down to luck, but that's racing. You look to Lewis Hamilton in 2016, his blowout in Malaysia, and being unlucky across many years. It happens, it's racing. And as we say, it's the unpredictability that you can both love and hate the sport for.
Indeed, we're looking back from Harry Smith with Tucson right behind a driver, caught out by a few bits of unfortunate issues throughout the season. He's looking to get P11 in this race, running right behind Smith here. Can he get this position? He'll get a DRS for a second time, moves to the left-hand side. Smith going extremely defensive there. Not as defensive as he did go against Lalu earlier, but could this be a switch over? Yes, it is. He's dived straight back to the inside. Tucson stuck on the outside. They're side by side. Tucson straight back behind Zach.
He has to tuck back in. This is Lalu on the inside of Barbakov. Not fought too hard at all by Barbakov, and Lalu up on to the podium. So at least in some sense, we have got our championship protagonists 1, 2, and 3 on track. So that's, I guess, something picturesque in of itself. But great defense so far from Harry Smith to consolidate P11 over Tucson just in behind. He's going to get another chance down this pit straight through the final proper corner. And then will rise over the crest and through towards the center S. He's not got the run that he would have wanted. Has he got the DRS, the push to pass as well, in order to get himself in front, closing at an absolute rate of knots. What more can Harry Smith do as Tucson pulls to the left-hand side, late on the brakes, gets it stopped. Harry Smith going to go the long way round. Bit of contact between the pair of them, even more so as they wheel rub on the exit. Still going to run side by side as Smith goes the long way round to turn 3, but Tucson with the inside surely has got the position done with DRS and push to pass.
But could this be Smith doing what he did last lap, backing out and trying to go for the inside? He definitely looked for it, didn't work out. But Smith is going to be behind now. Yes, he's going to get the slipstream, the DRS coming onto the main straight if he can stay close enough through the middle part of the course. But of course, Tucson looking a little bit faster, a little bit smoother through here. But Smith not letting that 11th position lose him yet. He's right behind, sticking close. Needs to be within 0.7 of a second across the DRS line, of course, to get that DRS onto the main straight. He's keeping within that at the moment. The gap's open a little bit, but with push to pass with DRS, this could be a return back into P11 if he pushes hard enough. How hard is Tucson going to defend if Smith gets close? This is going to be a hard-fought battle indeed for 11th position.
It is. He's. I mean, it's only for P11. There's not many points on offer for this one. Only 10, and only a 1-point swing from for P12. Only 9 points for P12. So yeah, they're only fighting over 1 extra point, but it's that pride and trying to finish as high as you can for the championship finale. I suppose. Going to take a look. This is what happened again to Van Vukas. He's driving left hand down this
Yeah.
T4 without a front wing or a rear wing. Has he had another off? We're trying to see what happened, but I think we've caught him just a little bit too late. But interesting to note that has happened, even if we don't know what caused it. For Van Vukas, it was a race that was a good start, had a bit of an incident, tried to recover from it, but unfortunately for him, hasn't been able to.
No, that's front and rear wing gone, suspension damage as well. That's a real shame. He is still moving around the circuit, so he is pitting. He is going to, looks like he's going to go for the end of this race. I mean, when you're 7 laps from the end, that's a real shame to have such a big issue when you've been running quite a nice race. Of course, one earlier spin, he was recovering nicely from that. But back to this fight for P11, which is going to turn into a P10 fight, which again is another point, but top 10, that just sounds like a nice way to end the season. Smith getting right onto the back end of Tucson here. He's going to have a good run through the S's. Can he get a nice run into turn 4? DRS opening quite late there. Push the pass active from Tucson, deactivated now. Smith goes to the inside. He's going to dive really late. He's going to move forward. There's contact between himself and Tucson. Tucson forced off the circuit there, but through goes Harry Smith, and that is Matt Tucson down to P11. I don't think he's going to be too happy about that, but I think this fight is going to go all the way to the end with how hard they are pushing for 10th position. We're looking at Tucson right now. The gap is still quite close. He could get back into the DRS range, and I think he's still there actually for the next lap.
He is indeed. He's fighting for that final place inside the top 10 is Tucson. They're fighting very, very hard for it. They're fighting as if they're the ones inside the championship hunt. Of course, they're not, and they're only fighting for P10, but still giving it absolutely everything, giving us a nice little show as we approach the final stages of this race and, of course, of this season. What can Tucson do? Can he launch a counter-attack? Because Harry Smith is very, very aggressive. It was a good dive, a fair dive as well. Tucson wouldn't be too happy with it, as Harry Smith just took the track away from him. But down in towards T1 once more. Tucson closes the gap under brakes. We'll get another set of DRS down this back straight towards T4. Is he close enough? Has he got the push to pass in hand in order to go for that move? He closes, but I think the straight is just going to run out and he's not going to have the chance. But still there and still piling the pressure on for P10.
Indeed, these two have been close for quite a few laps now. The fighting is continuing. We are going to get a replay here of that move. We're on board with Tucson as they go up towards turn number 4. You just see a car suddenly appearing up the inside. There it is. And there's the contact. I just don't think Tucson was looking in his mirrors. I actually think that was a good overtake there by Smith. Tucson just turned in as if nobody was coming. And I think that's where the contacts went. Tucson just aimed for the apex, and he shouldn't have, but doesn't matter anyway. No harm, no foul, because they're continuing in 10th and 11th, quite close to each other. Tucson is going to get a second chance here. It took Harry Smith 2 chances with the DRS to make his way through. Is going to take a couple of chances for Tucson as well, as they go on to the 52nd lap of this 57-lap race.
Is he close enough? Not for the first attempt. But the crucial thing, as we say time and time again, is to stay close off the exit of turn 2 and 3. But he's not done that at all. Still 6/10 trailing is Tucson versus Harry Smith. He's going to use the DRS, of course, naturally to close the gap. But the back straight towards T4 isn't quite long enough for an almighty send. Even if Harry Smith did try to prove that wrong a couple of laps ago, Tucson still has to play second fiddle and stay in P11. Yeah, that's this battle still will rage on, though. Tucson will try and close the gap, but it does just all come down to the exits of corners. You have to get the foot down well and run with that momentum, because yeah, these positions, especially around Interlagos, you have to have the straight line speed to get them done.
Indeed, they're the best opportunities along the straight into obviously the first chicane, into the S's, sorry, not the chicane, the S's, and into turn number 4. They're your 2 main overtaking opportunities here. Smith looking back towards Tucson again, the gap about 0.6 of a second. It's just not close enough going up towards the S's, but if he can get a nice run through, this could be a turn 4 opportunity, but the gap looks similar to last lap. He closes up on the braking though. Can he keep a nice line this time? It does look a little bit smoother than Smith's line, but it doesn't close him up enough. DOS will once again be open on Tucson. No push to pass by either. Don't think they're quite close enough there, but Lalu here on the back of Prosciutto. He's going to make a move through, so he was saving his soft tyres for the end of this race. He moves his way into second position. How hard is he going to push now to try and get up into the lead? If Prosciutto holds on to third, it's not going to do much for Lalu. But that, in some way, is going to be some sort of way to feel happy at the end of this race that Lalu did as much as he could to beat Prosciutto out on track, whether we beat him in the championship or not. Not that it's going to mean much to him in terms of the championship fight, but Barbakov is right behind him fourth. Could this be an issue with Prosciutto more than Lalu's tyres coming into play? Because Barbakov is looking a lot faster than Cosmo as well. This championship could flip on its head with 3 laps to go.
It's going to be tricky for Lalu to close a 6.7 lead on Ivanov, and unless there's a mistake from the NetRex driver, it's going to be tricky to do so. And of course, that relies on Barbakov being selfish and getting up into P3. But you are right, it doesn't take much for it to swing back onto its head after what was thought to be a done deal in this championship. And for Lalu, yeah, it's just a bittersweet moment. He's going to finish ahead of his rival, but not by enough to get the championship done. Here comes Barbakov on the outside of Prosciutto, pushes him off the podium. So now all it takes is Ivanov to spin Lalu into the race lead, and then Prosciutto is out of the championship lead, and Lalu will take the crown. But that is a very far-fetched possibility, and with the way Ivanov has been driving, he doesn't look like he's going to flinch to pressure now.
Indeed, Prosciutto's got to feel very happy with the unfortunate errors for Van Vukas through this race, because if Van Vukas didn't have the spin and he didn't have the contact or the issue that caused his wings to go, he'd be involved in this fight and be pushing Prosciutto even further down the order. So this is almost the unfortunate events of others have really played into Prosciutto's hands here. The incidents earlier on in the race as well, Van Vukas is included, who's doing well to recover. He's P12. He's actually behind his teammate Tucson here, and this fight that is going on between Smith and Tucson, so this could be a 3-way fight for P10. Something of Van Vukas almost a way to recover. Just a top 10, a way to finish with a spin and a pit stop due to suspension damage and the front and rear wing off his car. He's close. Tucson almost looks like he lets him through. He runs quite wide there, but Van Vukas and Tucson side by side into turn 4, and the woo goes Van Vukas. Yeah, Tucson not fighting too hard. He knows that Van Vukas on those fresher softs, of course, and a faster driver here at Interlagos. We look back towards the fight between the Royal Blue drivers because Prosciutto has not backed off. It doesn't look like there is a major issue with his car, but something had happened for him to drop down to P4, but this is looking like his championship still with 2 laps to go. If something happens to Prosciutto or something happens to Ivanov, this could swing a different way. But right now, Prosciutto's just got to get that car to the end.
We're clenching at short straws with these possibilities. It seems that Prosciutto, 95% is the chance that he's probably going to win this championship unless something crazy happens. We're on to the penultimate lap of this race, of this season. Van Vukas on the back of Harry Smith. He's had a very incredible recovery drive from his situations. Harry Smith going to fight back though through turn 2 into 3, has to back out though. And talking of recovery drives, Peter Vagapov from the back of the grid, a drive through as well up into P8. He's done a really good job.
He has a real good job to get into P8 with, again, benefiting from other issues, but because he had that drive-through penalty, he himself was technically an extra pit stop behind other drivers, and to finish in 8th position from the back of the field would be a fantastic result with this. But Barbakov, P3, middle of this fight once again. It's just, they're so close together. Anything can happen, but as you say, I'm clutching at the shortest of short straws because Prosciutto is still in P4. Lalu is not leading this race. Ivanov is. This is going to be Prosciutto's championship if they come across the line like this. But how hard is Barbakov going to fight here? He knows the championship is done and dusted. He's going to want a P2, surely, coming through here. He's not leaving us to anyone's chances. He is going for this position past Lalu because at this point, anything happens to Lalu really doesn't matter. He's not going to win the championship. But can Barbakov's get that P2 to end the season, which, if looking at Barbakov's results in the season, would be his best result. He has gone off. No?
No, but here comes Ivanov through the final sets of corners. He's going to take his second victory of the season from pole position across the line, and his victory here in Interlagos for Viktor Ivanov. Not quite the championship, but a second victory. Here comes Jukka-Pekka Laulu across the line in second place. Stoyan Barbakov rounds off the podium, but Cosmo Prosciutto, your FSR 2022 Pro Champion, he did enough in this race to consolidate that lead at the top of the table. Laulu and Ivanov did their best, but there was no stopping the raw blue car of Prosciutto. Patrick Hanko and Thomas Wack 5 and 6. Very, very close between those two as well. But what a season it's been, Richard, and what a way to end it off.
Indeed, a fantastic season, a great result from Ivanov, the only driver other than Matthew Williams to take more than one win in a season, and he does it right at the dying stages. A great one for him, did absolutely all he could. Lalu, second position, tried his absolute best. Prosciutto, though, just does what he needs to do. Finished P4, takes the championship with that, and he is going to celebrate after missing out in the previous season. He takes the 2022 Pro Championship, and he is, as you can see, absolutely elated with that. I know that Lalu Ivanov, they are going to be a little bit bummed out about missing that, but especially so with Lalu, leading the championship so consistently along the way. But what a result from all the World Blue drivers. What a result from Ivanov as well. And what a season this has been. I can't wait for 2023 already.
Yeah, we've got a long way to go. Till then, we have quite a few months, but it's been a great season here in 2022. These are the results for the final race. It was Viktor Ivanov that took the win. Jukka-Pekka Laulu in P2 with his teammate Stoyan Barbakov rounding off the podium. Our champion Cosmo Prosciutto in P4 with Patrick Hanko rounding off the top 5. Thomas Wack in P6 with Lianos P7. Peter Vagapov, a great recovery drive after last place and a jump start, recovers to P8. Liam Howard and Kostas Van Vukas round off the top 10. Looking outside, Harry Smith P11, Matthew Tucson P12, George Zalagianis in P13, just behind Fabian Barley and Kevin Morville. Chancellor Patelis in P16, and those that didn't quite make it to the checker flag, Kaz Rievelt, Tom Stevens, Casper Nizio, and Mirko Mancini amongst those that didn't make it and involved in a fair share of crashes. Those are your standings. A Royal Blue 1-2 in the Drivers' Championship. They took the Team Championship as well. They really couldn't have asked for a better season. But behind that, Viktor Ivanov in P3, Stoyan Barbakov P4. Danny Van Den Eyck hangs on to top 5 in the championship with Matthew Williams. His 4 wins, his 4 lone races in this championship is good enough for P6. Mirko Mancini 1 point behind in 7th. Thomas Wack P8. Kostas Van Vukas in P9 with Patrick Hanko just behind, rounding off the top 10 in the championship. And yeah, well, talking about Royal Blue, they're going to be delighted with today.
They are. That couldn't have gone better, would you say? They took the Team's Championship last time out in Indianapolis. They took the Drivers' Championship here, which was almost a certainty going through into this race. Prosciutto and Lalu, the main championship contenders, but Ivanov did do his absolute best, put it on pole position, wait for the win. He tried all he could. But what a season that's been, and it's been up and down all the way through for all of our drivers. But Prosciutto comes out on top in that number 76 machine, just 4 points between himself and his teammate of Lalu. What a championship.
Talking of championships, the action here on the Formula Sim Racing channel isn't done yet. In just a few moments, we will go to the World Championship, and the gap is only 6 points between Colin Spork and Alex Ebel. They are very close. They've had a titanic championship duel. Ewan O'Leary and Lewis McGlade will talk you through all the action here on both the FSR and the VCO channel. It's been an absolute pleasure to talk you through the action. Myself, Zach Sweeney, alongside Richard King with Cameron Rodger on the cameras. We'll see you next time. We'll see you in 2023, but do certainly stay tuned for the World Championship. We have a little bit of a hype video to get you excited, get you riled up, and get you looking forward to what will be an epic showdown between 2 fantastic drivers. Always the normal thank yous to Masita East, 3D Rap, SimLab, and our broadcasting partners over at VCO. From myself, Zach Sweeney, and Richard King, we'll see you next time. Take care, and bye-bye.
We are ready once again to get a season underway in the Formula Sim Racing World Championship. It is go, and look at Colin Sport. Dennis Jordan with the defensive move. basically rolling as a roadblock into Tamburello, hanging the rear out. Look at that from Spork. Next target, Alex Siebel. Surely this one's going to be a little bit easier than Dennis Jordan, as there's no DRS. As Colin Spork will take the checkered flag first and win for Unicorns of Love. And that was probably one of the easiest moves that Alex Siebel's ever going to get, but he's got to hang on at T1.
Spork's going to dive down the inside into turn 2 instead and try and take that position away, but Siebel just about does enough there.
Alex Siebel, he's still going to come across the line in second, and it is an Oracle Red Bull Racing eSports 1-2. Colin Spork comes around the final corner to win his second race of the Formula Sim Racing World Championship.
The two Red Bulls, 6 and 7 this time, going to be disappointed with that.
It is his third of the season. Spork victorious again at the French Grand Prix. Fantastic recovery inside the top 5 from Alex Siebel.
Here it is, battle for the race lead. Here's Spork on the back of Siebel.
Colin Spork, he's just driven to perfection and completely dominates the Belgian Grand Prix here. Alex Siebel will take second position.
As that's Colin Spork off the road, up through the S's, and there's contact behind. Outside lines, the Castian triangle, there's almost no space there. Siebel, he's going to have the straight line speed here. Spork won't give this up easily, but Siebel's going to race around the outside. He's going to take the lead on the very final lap. It's Alex Siebel who's going to take victory in the Japanese Grand Prix.
And this should be a fairly easy move now from Alex Siebel, who's to the outside of Colin Spork. It's back-to-back race victories for Alex Siebel. Colin Spork will come across the line in 4th position. Alex Siebel will lead us from pole position. Colin Spork getting a decent launch. He has to back up a little bit. And there's Colin Spork to the inside, and he absolutely hammers Alex Siebel out of the way. And he commits to the inside. They're fully alongside. They're both in the barrier. And he flips Mitchy Hoyer around. It is a third race win of the season from Alex Siebel.
The two rivals go side by side. Colin Spork on the inside, Alex Siebel on the outside line. He goes around to get the inside for the second part. The two make slight contact, but Alex Siebel makes his way through. And Siebel's into the wall, trying to get another couple of points as Alex Siebel takes the championship lead